So welcome back to the channel. I'm Sunny and this is Someone Else's Cloud. So lately I've been consulting across a wide range of projects and initiatives at work, and it's forced me to learn more about Azure as a platform, as well as more standards and frameworks. And it's also motivated me to potentially do some Microsoft certifications. So I'm thinking about doing the AZ700, which is the Azure Network Engineer Associate exam. And I've already got the Azure Administrator, the Azure Architect, and the Azure Security Engineer certification. I guess the AZ700 is probably the next one in line. So I thought I'd create a video where I build a lab, and it's going to be a super simple lab. But rather than having pre-written code, this time I'll just write it on the fly. So let's get straight into this. So you might be wondering, why would you go build your own lab and everything via Terraform when there's so many good resources out there? So let's kick off with the Azure Verified modules. So if we read the value proposition here, it says Azure Verified Modules, AVM, is an initiative to consolidate and set the standards for what a good infrastructure as code module looks like. Modules will then align to these standards across languages, Bicep, Terraform, etc., and will be classified as AVMs and available from their respective language-specific repositories. So if we just go and look at the module indexes and we just have a look at Terraform here, so you can see here that there is resource modules and there's pattern modules. So obviously pattern modules is a collection of resources. So there's actually landing zone pattern modules here. So obviously I'll deploy the entire landing zone. And then obviously the resource modules are basically individual resources. Sure, I could use this, but modules sometimes can actually add a layer of complexity at times. And I've seen some of these modules and they're pretty much just exposing every single value. And I just want to build a lab. So I don't want it to be enterprise scale. I want it to be probably lab scale. So that's why I've decided to just build my own. Okay, so let's quickly jump into what is an Azure Landing Zone. So rather than building a lab, I'm building landing zones pretty much. So if you look here, this is the CAF framework, or CAF, which is the Cloud Adoption Framework. So if you have a read here, an Azure Landing Zone is an environment that follows key design principles across 8 design areas. These design principles accommodate all application portfolios and enable application migration, modernization, and innovation at scale. An Azure Landing Zone uses subscriptions to isolate and scale application resources and platform resources. And subscriptions for application resources are called application landing zones, and subscriptions for platform resources are called platform landing zones. So if we click on the next link, I have reference documentation here. And if you look at this one, which is the enterprise scale for small enterprises, originally I was going to build something along these lines. So if you look here, there's basically a key management group here for the company. And then there's a landing zones management group and a platform management group. And then there's subscriptions under those. So if you look at the platform, subscription has a whole bunch of monitoring, automation, the virtual networks, as well as the express routes and VPN gateways and the firewall. And then some identity, which is domain controllers and backups. And then you can see here that these landing zones have specific business line management groups, and you can see there's unique services inside that subscription. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty much going to have one subscription. So if we flick over to my requirements. So my requirements on this lab is to keep it simple, where I can stand it up, tear it down. So I don't want it to be complicated with, layers and layers of modules. And I also am going to simplify it. And these are the things on how I'm going to simplify it. So I'm not going to configure a local provider to authenticate. I'm just going to leverage off the Azure CLI, because I don't want to store credentials locally, as well as a single subscription, which means I don't need to have multiple providers. And then also I want to have a local state file, because if I have a remote state file where I'm storing state in a storage account, that means I need to create the storage account, set up the RBAC so I can actually write to it. This is not going to be long-term. It's going to be build, play around, destroy. So, I want to keep it super simple. We're going to have application landing zones, but rather than having subscriptions, I'll have resource groups, just so it's contained inside a single subscription. You can pretty much achieve the same things, because you can just scope RBAC at different levels. Obviously, if you need to do multiple subscription work, then that's a bit different, as well as management group stuff. So, if I ever need to do that, then I'll evolve this thing and change it. So I'll also have a platform landing zone, which will actually just be a resource group, which will contain core networking and maybe monitoring and some other things. And then I want to have a single config file, which will allow me to configure everything, and it'll most likely be in YAML. I'm a bit torn with having YAML, yes or no, I don't know yet. We're sort of slowly evolving things at work at the moment. I think having YAML is great as long as you're not doing for loops and multiple loops, and then you start referencing keys. So then you have to reverse engineer what those keys are. So you need to try and keep it simple if you're going to use a YAML file. And then modules, I have no idea if we're going to use modules because, like I said, modules will just overcomplicate things at times, as where if I just write code, I can do for each loops like it's a module in some way. So this is pretty much it. So if we get straight into it, so let's go into Azure and I'll show you what I have here. So obviously I have multiple subscriptions here. So I've gone and set up a company management group, which is under the tenant root. And then I've set up a landing zones and platforms management group with subscription. So I'm going to operate inside this landing zone subscription. And what I've gone and done is I've created a service principal and I've added it as owner to the top level. So it's super management SP and it's basically signed owner at the management group level. So pretty much I'm going to use that one to authenticate. Okay, so what I need to do is set up my provider. Now, a provider, just to confuse you, is like a PowerShell module, not a Terraform module. But basically, it's how Terraform interfaces with Azure via API. So all we need to do is set up our provider here. So if you look here, use provider, there's basically a block that you can just copy. So if we go back, let's create a new file, and we'll just call this providers.tf. And you basically just copy that. So what we need to do is add a features block, I believe. It's just something that you need to declare in the Azure RM provider, like I'd get an error if I didn't. As well as there's a skip registration, and we'll set that to false. If you don't have this skip provider registration, if you deploy a VM, it will try and register the compute provider, which is not something I want to do each time. So that's basically how you set up a provider. What I've done is I've set some environment variables just purely for the demo, so I don't have to mask out, details. And I'm pretty much going to authenticate. So you can see I've got a variable that's app ID, password, and tenant. And then I'm basically just outputting it to this dev null, so it doesn't output all my subscription stuff to the screen. This is purely just for demo purposes. So you can see the subscription here, and this is basically Oh My Posh. So you can check out my setting up WSL video if you want to install Oh My Posh. But pretty much I'm just showing you that I'm authenticated via a service principal now. So pretty much I can just run Terraform commands. So I've got an alias for TF, so I don't have to type in Terraform each time. And it's basically if I just do an initialization, you can see it will download the Azure RM provider. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm ready to go to pretty much deploy anything I want. Let's create a new config file. So I'll call it config.yaml. What we'll also need to do is if we just create let's create a new locals.tf file. We basically need to decode that file. So we'll call it config equals YAML decode. And we've got to say it's a file. And then we're going to just call it config.yaml. Okay, and then this file will have a global heading, just so I don't have to retype stuff. So location will be a global attribute, just so I don't have to type it everywhere. And we'll add our subscription. And we'll add the ID. I don't know what I'll need that for actually, but let's add it anyway. And then what we'll do is we'll create another heading, which will be landing zones. We'll just everything would just be a landing zone. I don't know what these keys will be, so maybe platform, we'll just call it app alpha, and maybe an app beta. So I don't know what's going to be under these headings yet, but let's go back to the Terraform page. So I've already found the resource group config, which is very straightforward. So we're going to create a new file, which could be called platform.tf. So this will be it. Let's call the resource platform. I don't know what the naming will be, but let's just put this here. So this will be local. So basically we're going to decode that config file. So it'll be config, and then the heading is global and location, I believe. So if I just do an init again, I don't know, I always have a habit of running Terraform init each time. I don't think you actually need to each time, but obviously it's downloading the providers again. If I just do a plan, and it doesn't work. So it's complaining about the YAML decode, start of, okay. So if we go config, global, location, I feel like it doesn't like my config file. Just make sure I'm typing it right. That's weird. I think the file didn't save for some reason. I don't know, because I didn't change anything. So if you just run a plan, it should theoretically just create a resource group. So you can see it's creating a resource group with the name example. So I'm still deciding on how I'm going to turn things on and off. So ideally what we want is, let's say, we're going to add a virtual network. We're going to probably add log analytics. This one would just be a true or false, I think. Let's go ahead first and do the log analytics. So if we have a look at this, log analytics. So we're going to deploy a log analytics workspace. So we just need this part. Now we'll just call this platform as well. Now this will depend on the above. So this actually needs to be platform and platform. Yeah, I don't know what to do with naming standards yet, but let's go ahead and do this. So that's going to be, so what we want to do is add some logic. So we'll add a count equals local dot config dot landing zone. Actually, I might just split this. So I'm basically just going to add a count. So a count allows you to turn something on and off. So the logic is, if this local config landing zones platform log analytics, which is this, equals true, then I believe it's question mark, and then we just say 1 or 0. So obviously 1 means create and 0 means don't create. So if you have a look at this, now I still don't know what I'm going to do with naming, but if I just set this to false, and we do an init again, just do a plan, it should just create the resource group. So there, you can see it's just a resource group. So let's go true, let's turn it on, and let's do a plan again. So you can see now it's going to also deploy the log analytics workspace. Now I don't generally like to use count because you can see here it adds this prefix of 0, but I'm only going to deploy one instance. It gets a bit annoying when you start deploying more than one instance and there's counts, but with one for a lab, it's okay. So that's pretty much going to turn that on. And then next, what we'll do is, actually, let's just format a name. So we're going to put a format, and you can basically put %s, and then so %s is just a string, and we'll pass a string in after. So what it'll be is actually we got to figure out how I'm going to do this, because these will be keys. So maybe I'm going to create a loop. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to maybe do a for each loop. Let's see how this will look. So if we go for each, and it'll basically be local dot config dot landing zones. So this will basically just loop through every key, so these keys, and create landing zones based on them. So let's put a format again. So what we're going to do is going to be RG, and hopefully I can add, I don't know how to format this type. What I might do is just introduce keys that will form the names. So let's do that. So it'll be RG, and we'll just put a %s, which will be the region, and then the %s, which will be the unique identifier. And let's add another thing, which will be a sequence number. So then what we do is we will add local dot config dot global dot location. Now I don't know if I can do this here, so let's see if I can just add upper, which will make it all uppercase. And then we'll put a comma for the next string, which is the next S. We will add a key identifier. So we'll call it ID. Let's just call it ID, I think. We'll just call it platform. So I'm just adding a sequence number just so it's easier for me to actually modify when I'm creating multiple resources, so I don't have to put logic inside it. So, that will be sequence 2, and this will just be, let's just call it alpha, and this one will just be called beta. Maybe we'll call it app. We'll call it app beta and app alpha. So these will be the names of the resource groups, and then you have sequence numbers. So pretty much the next value we'll have is the ID. So it'll be local dot config dot landing zones dot. What we need is reference. It'll be each key. So that should hopefully summarize, tag each one of these with this key, and then it will just be dot ID. And then I'm going to need the same for the next value, which is a sequence. Let me see what I'm doing here. Yep, so the next string will be this, and it'll be sequence. Okay. It's really hard to see what I'm doing. Hopefully that works. So let's see what happens. So this should create 3 resource groups with those values. Hopefully. I should have done a validate. Okay. So it doesn't like the each key. So let's go with each value. I always get confused with this stuff. Should be each key, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this should be each key. I don't know why it didn't work before. I assume it was because it didn't save. These really annoy me. Just call this RGs since I'm making it generic now. Local config landing zones Maybe it's because I have these double quotes. Okay, so it looks like that's working now. So it was the quotes. But what I need here now is I actually now need to reference this, and it needs to be platform. So I need to pin this now to the platform resource group because I'm now creating that loop. Okay, let's do a plan now. So you can see here, it's going to create the workspace, and you can see it's going to create it in the platform resource group, and I should have a loop that you can see here, app alpha. So that's going to create the alpha 1, beta 2, and then platform. So that will always loop through. So if I got rid of that and I basically did a plan, it shouldn't create beta. So now I've got a loop similar to, looping through modules. It will basically just loop through my config file. So if I ever need more resource groups, I basically just have to set up a structure like this. Now, next one. So now I have a loop. I've got a naming pattern for that one. So let's just maybe, I was going to say copy it, but let's not copy it. So we'll just call this one log analytics. Just add the bracket so it's not complaining. And this would be something similar. So we'll just go with location because we want to know where this resource lives. And these references will be very similar. So I'll just add the same. But just like the other ones, we're going to pin it to platform. The platform values, that is. So this isn't going through a key. So this, doesn't have a for each loop. So this won't actually work. So I have to statically specify that platform value. I could also just do this as well, I believe. I think both of these should work. Both as in the two different references, they both achieve the same. Yep, so you can see here it's still going to deploy it. But I prefer to just do it this way because in code you can see that it's the platform key specifically, so it just stands out a bit more. But let's see, did that change? So you can see it changed the resource name now. So it's a resource type, location, the platform tag, and then the sequence. Okay, so next is I want to deploy a virtual network. So if we go back to here, just go virtual network. This will show you everything you need to set up. So we may as well take this too, which will be a NSG as well as a virtual network. Being a lab, I'm just going to deploy this subnet inside the virtual network because you can actually deploy a subnet as well, just outside of the resource. So you can see here. So you can also deploy a subnet here as well, and you can add delegations. But just for the purposes of a lab, I will just do the easy way, which is this. So if we go back, let's add this now. You know what? This file name will probably be just landing zones, to be honest, since platform is in there too. Okay, so we've got these. So what I might do is probably just go through and create, let's contain it all. So we'll also create a loop. Actually, let's copy this whole thing. And this will just be the same. So if you look here, we're going to go through a loop. Each one of these keys will create a NSG as well. So we're going to keep a similar name, but we're going to put this as NSG, and location is the same. So delete this. So name and location, and the resource group. Let's move that. Resource group will be here. So this will pretty much just deploy an NSG for every single one of these resources or landing zones as well. Now, where are they going to go? So they will go, let's do the loop. So this will pretty much just do this. And if I just go, and if we do the same thing, which would be each key. So if I comment this out, this should create an NSG for every single one of those resource groups. So let's run a Terraform FMT. So that just lints it. So if you look, it basically just formatted it and made it all pretty. Let's do another init. Like I said, always do an init. I don't need to. It's just a habit. So if we just run a plan, this should now create NSGs for every single resource group as well. So if you look here, Log Analytics Workspace, the resource groups, app alpha, app beta, and then platform. And then you can see here, we're going to, actually, that is the NSGs. And the resource groups are down the bottom now. So you can see there, so that's going to create an NSG for every single landing zone. But we should probably, let's call it NSGs. Okay, so let's do the virtual network now. So we should be able to do another loop, I believe. So we're going to add virtual networks for every single one of these for now. You know what? Just to show you how Terraform works, we will probably just add it for one of them, just so it shows, I guess, so you can see, that by me adding values, the loops will automatically create or not create if I add them or not. So that makes it probably easier. So I can basically copy the same for each. We're going to copy the same name, just makes it super easy. We'll just call it VNet. And obviously the standard naming pattern, which would be just location. I don't really like this app alpha thing, so maybe we'll just make it one word. So we haven't actually created anything yet. So I'm just going through plans to validate what I expect to be created is what I want, like naming standards and the loops. Okay, so location. So as you can see here, it's pretty easy. I just duplicate the same sort of code. So we're going to add same location for everything for now. Like I said, I just want to have a simple lab that I can build and tear down. Now, this will also go through each resource group. So hopefully this works. We'll find out, because I don't know if I need to add another value to say if virtual network equals true or not. So let's find out. So if we do this, so yeah, I can pretty much just leave all this. Like I said, for now, I'll just create one single subnet, which I probably won't even use, but we'll just do this. And then name, just copy this, makes it super easier. And this will just be SN. So we'll create the virtual network. It should create it through every loop. And it should, actually. Yeah, so the other challenge now is I'll have virtual networks here, right? So what I actually need is to create subnets under here. So we go subnet 1. So that means I now need to reference that key. Yeah, let's see how we go. So what we want is that and that. Let's see how this works. Let's see how this works. So it'll pretty much loop through every key, and the address would need to be, I believe it's each key dot virtual network dot address. Hopefully this works. So if this gets too challenging, I might create a different subnet block. Now, I don't know if, I think I need to do something like this actually to separate these keys. Let's find out. And this would be, we're just going to have to do that. Subnet. Just remove tags. Let's see what happens. Still validate. So each key is a string. This value does not have any attributes. So virtual network. Yeah, this is where it starts getting complicated with keys. Local config, each key. Let's do a plan. Okay, so it looks like I need values. It's a list of strings. Can I do this? It actually gave me an output. But let's go back to this. So it's complaining about the address space. Yeah, so this is where the challenge comes. So this is where you have to start creating dynamic things where it's because I'm not passing through this virtual network attribute. Actually, let's see if I can get away with it. No, it's complaining for the app alpha as well, right? So app alpha, yeah, basically because I don't actually have an address space. So it's trying to create stuff under this. Let's see if I can get away with creating a blank entry. Oh, I hate this YAML stuff. But it's easy. I don't have to write Terraform code. So let's do a validate quickly. I'm hoping I can get away with not having keys, but I assume it's going to complain. Actually, you know what? Maybe I just need to have blank keys. Let's just try it. So this is a problem when you're using YAML and it's basically going through it. As where if I just declared a variable, it'll just consume them. So this is where the challenge comes. So obviously it's got to do with the subnets. So it's expecting values, which is odd because it's not complaining about the VNet. So let's see how I can get around with this. Is required. So it's definitely complaining because it needs the subnet. So let's maybe try and take this out. Let's go back to this. Let's see what happens if I declare a subnet block rather than having it nested inside the VNet block, because I feel like that's causing part of my problem. Okay, so we're going to re-add the name and we'll just call this subnets and add the address prefix. Looks like it's prefixes, by the way. And let's delete this. Now that means I need to loop through as well. So that way I can reference these values, which is the resource group name. And this would just be not confident this is going to work. Yep. So now my challenge is, because I am looping through these keys here, my challenge is if these values are empty, now my loops are bombing out. So now this is where you have to create some dynamic keys. So let's try and create a dynamic key. So let's just call this subnets, because it's complaining about VNets and subnets, right? So let's create a VNets. Now I think it's 4K and then it's in, then it's v in. So this should create a dynamic key, which will be key. Now let's test this out because I never know how these work. I always have to look at reference code and whatever else to solve this. But let's see how this works. So again, the console definitely helps. I don't know any other way to validate this, but I like to use the console. So if we do this, so I've just commented out so I can just run the console, or else it'll error out saying certain things. But you can basically do something like that. So now you can see that I've built this dynamic map which will loop through those keys. Now, what I can do is I can say, put an if, and then I think I can just go and then you can go key, so it'll be key dot virtual network. I think I have to go address because I can't say that. And you can say not equal, I think null, hopefully. All right, so now if I don't provide an address space for virtual network, it won't build the key, hopefully. So if you look at this, yes. Okay, so you can see here that I've only provided one virtual network, which means it will now only create one virtual network. So what I'll do now is if you just change my VNet key stuff, this will now be local.vnet. So what will happen is it will only process the VNets that have a virtual network address space. So I don't know if this changes the syntax. I think it will actually. So now, because I've now changed the loop, it's going to change the values. So I think this will now be something like that, because now it's going to loop through that locals, which is this map that you see. So these values now change. So hopefully now it will only create VNets when this map is built, and this map is only built for blocks that have an address in it. So that should hopefully stop. And I'll do the same for subnets. So if we just do a validate, of course it's errored. Yeah, this is where it gets funky again. So let's try and do a console again, because now I can just go local.vnets. Like I said, now the tricky part is looping through this. So local VNets, so that will still be the key. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working. So let's go through and do the same, I guess, because I'm not going to sit here and try and figure it all out. Let's just do this. And hopefully that just works. While I'm here, I may as well do the subnets. So what we'll do is we'll create another dynamic map for subnets, which will basically loop through. But this time we're going to put, it'll be virtual network dot subnet dot address space. So, and that's basically the loop that will be for subnets. So if we go here, let's comment this out now. So if we go local dot subnets, and then we have to replace this again, I believe. So that's a way around it, because when you're declaring certain values in a config.yaml, the values need to be there because you're building logic against the keys. So the keys need to exist, because there's no logic to say don't do anything if it doesn't exist. And that's how you can get around it. You can create basically these for loops that will basically, you can see here, it's basically saying for each key value in local.config.landing zones, which is, this is the key, and this is going to be the key and the value. So as I drill in further, and it's basically saying create the key and the value. So that's basically every sub key. And then you can put a value here saying if that local config landing zones key dot virtual network, and then it says dot address is not null. And then the same goes for subnet. So hopefully that works. So let me just kill this now. And if we just do a tf, so tempted to do the init again. Each key is a string. Where is this? So you can see here it's virtual network, so it's complaining about the VNet stuff. Let me just clean this up as well. And let's see. So we're going to keep DNS servers there. So it's complaining about the address space. Oh, I'm missing a bracket. But why is it? Oh, there's a double bracket here. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so let's see what happens when I run a plan this time. Theoretically, it shouldn't create VNet or subnet for those two. Yep, so you can see here, log analytics workspace, NSGs for each one, resource groups, and then it's also going to create the subnet and the virtual network. And you can see it's not doing anything for these two because I have nothing defined. Yeah, so this is going to get trickier, I think. So what we'll do is, what if I change this? Let's change that to a 24. And if I change this to a /28, hopefully that works. Not the best subnetting machine. Okay, so that works. So I just wanted to move to something smaller. Why is that showing? It's so hard to see. No, I don't know why it's complaining. Maybe it needs something. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, because I'm putting in the wrong space. And we will just do this. Can I just do that? I don't know. Oh, I got to do the init. I don't know. Let's do a plan. I just want to create at least one spoke VNet because I want to peer that back to the other one. Okay, so we've got two there. So you can see there, app subnet's going to be created and a platform subnet. Because the reason why I just wanted to add a second one was I got to figure out how I'm going to peer these two now. So let's go back into this. So there's virtual network peering. So obviously peering needs to go both ways. So we're going to run an apply. So it's going to create the workspace. It's going to create the NSGs. And it's going to create the resource groups and the subnets and the VNets. So let's go yes. So this is pretty much going to create it. Let's jump back into the Azure portal. Let's go into, let's go resource groups for now. Okay, let's flick back. So you can see here it's creating. So now we play the waiting game. So you can see here, apparently platform is created. I don't see anything though. Simplified view. Whoa. Okay, so they're all created. You know what? I like lowercase better actually. Anyways, if we now click on, say, resources, should start seeing some resources. So there you go. Log Analytics Workspace is deployed. The NSGs are deployed and the virtual networks. Hey, actually, when you create NSGs, interesting. So let me have a look at the NSG stuff because I don't recall associating the NSGs to any subnets. So let's go to the subnets. Okay, so there's an association block that I need to add. So let's add that. Oh, creating subnet outside of VNet. Yeah, great. Let's just add this quickly. So this would be So we're going to create a loop for each and local.subnets because I don't want it to associate everything again. And this will be, this will have to be referencing each key as well. So we'll go subnets. And we should be able to just go ooh. So we go each key. And this would be the same. Wait. Yes. So we should be able to go NSG, and we should hopefully be able to go each key as well. Okay, so I never understand this subnetting stuff. Let's try and run and apply again. Just change the CIDR to be the same as the virtual network, so I just allocate the whole thing. Okay, so you can see here that it's going to now recreate it. On top of that, the NSGs will now be associated to the corresponding subnets. Oh, it's actually complaining about this one. Let's just do that. I thought it was complaining about the other one. Let's apply that again. I always forget to use auto approve. So let's just go yes. Let's see if it actually creates it. Man, that was their example, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I got this from the HashiCorp doco, but then I'm like, hey, wait a sec, that's different. So hopefully this will just create it. We want to basically keep it as simple as possible. If you look here, the address base is /24 and the subnet is /24. Okay, so now that's done. So out of curiosity, let's try this now. Now I'm curious to see what happens. Let's just do a console. Okay, so this is adding a count index, but I just want to see what happens if I look at this value. Even this. Interesting. So you can see there, name does exist. So I wonder, it says peering element 1-count index. I don't actually know what that does. Let's see what happens. So that's going to error, is my assumption. So what we're going to try, that's not going to work. So let's see if we can use this VNets. Let's try it again. I wonder what happens. Because what we want to do is pretty much use these keys. Let's try and do another for each loop. So we go for each. Actually, let's go back to this. If we go peering, virtual network peering. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try and add a loop. Let's get rid of that. Just call this peering. So we'll just say for each equals local.vnets. So this again will only execute if VNets exist. And then what we'll do is, this is RGs, and it'll be again each key. And this virtual network, so it'll be VNets, and then each key. Okay, so this is where it gets challenging because I need to have the opposite VNets. Let's try and see what these values will be. As you can see, I didn't really come prepared. You know, it's easier when you're at work because you have all these modules at work, so you can actually look up logic on how people have done stuff because it's harder to find stuff on the internet. You know, you're looking up forums and stuff. So that's generally how I do stuff. I just go through and see what other people have done just to save time. But for the instance of this, now the problem is I need to get the VNet keys. So the issue is I need to get the VNet keys and I need to reverse it, right? So I need first attribute is the virtual network name, and then the other one is the ID. I need to somehow build a list that will have different values. So let's have a look at this. So you can see here. So ideally, what I want to build is a map, and the map will actually be one VNet and the resource ID. You know what? It'll be easier if I just build the key. So if I maybe do this, if I say peering equals, we can do something similar for the VNets, right? Let's see what's local.vnets again. Okay, so they're not the values we want. So what we want to do is iterate through all the VNets that are created. So that's going to be virtual network. So this, actually, we would continue to use that as a key reference to this time. We might not need this if statement. Let's delete that for now. So what we might want is it will be the value for each will be dot vnets, and then I think it's just v. So it'll create the key value, and each virtual network, it will actually be key, will be the map. So let's see if this works. I hate writing these for loops. They always do my head in. Okay, so it's basically saying, so I'm trying to reference the same key. Maybe I can do that. Nope. Okay, because what I'm doing is local.vnets. So I'm referencing those keys. Yeah, so this, because if I click on this, this should have a similar key reference. So if you look, see how it's got platform? So I should be able to go like this again, and that'll give me the platform. So when I try and build this key, because I need to now grab the name and the IDs. Yeah, it's not going to work either. But let's just see what happens if I do this. Yeah, it's really hard because you can't tell what anything is. You can't tell what every one of these values will be, right? So what if I did this? And then we go KV. So that will loop through each one. And that is the keys. So you can see there, one, and then platform. So I need to build pretty much two keys. So this will build my VNets, and they'll build the values. So if I loop through each name, and it needs to go through each key. So I feel like, what if I just create two? See, this is where you have to create, because what I want is, I want a name, but I want the ID of the other VNet. Now actually, what we want is if let's call this hub. I think what I'll need to do is if k equals platform. What happens if I do that? So that will only return the platform, right? And then I want the opposite, which will be not equal platform. And we'll call this spokes. And this should return the opposite. Okay, so we're going to go through this. So I think it's local.subnets, and then we got local.hub and local.spokes, right? Okay, so we're going to loop through local.spokes. And this time, so I'm gonna have to reverse this. Anyways, let's go through this. So spokes. So that would be each key again. So I don't know if I can just reference this. So local.spokes, each key, we will just go resource group name, and this will just be ID. And then remote will be local.hub. Let's go platform.id. Hopefully, does that work? Yep. Okay. And then we'll try and set up something similar, hopefully. So naming will be, I'm going to remove that part. And what we're going to do is make it all lowercase. I don't know. I just want all lowercase. Okay, so it will be peering. And this would be, let's see, what's the name? We'll just call this, I wonder if I can just go each key. Can I use that as a reference? Let's see, can I do this? That doesn't look right. Can I do this? So this will only be 2 values. Let's see. Just work. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if these keys just work or not. Yeah, so this is Terraform. You do a validate, it says it's okay, and then you do a plan and it says, I don't know what you're talking about. So obviously it's referencing the key. I want to use the key as a reference point, but yeah, that ain't going to work. So what I'll just do is write it. Let's just go. We'll just go straight hub. So did that? No, it's complaining about all of it. Can I just do each key? Yeah, see, it doesn't even like it in the squares. So let's see if I can do that. I want to try and use that key as the actual name. Yeah, that worked. So app alpha to hub. Sweet. So what we're going to do is reverse it now. So we'll just go hub. And then we switch these two around. Is that right? It's asking for a virtual network name, not ID. But anyways, this should reverse it. So what we'll do is we'll switch this around. And this will be hub. So peering has to go both ways. Now, yeah, that says name, not ID. So I don't know if that's going to work. So let's just go. So this would be spoke to hub. And this would be hub to spoke. Let's go again. Okay, so what I wanted to check was this, because this, what is it, app alpha? I need the network name, not the ID. So it's just .name. Okay. Okay, so hopefully this will be it. And this will be pretty much my lab. So just the scaffolding and then any other additional resources. Actually, oh, yep. So this needs to be hub. Each key, resource group name. Peering hub to spoke. Okay, so I think it's complaining about what I just changed. Let's try it again. Like I said, Terraform's weird. See, you can see it's all successful and then it errors out at the end. Line 77, so it's complaining about this. It says local.spokes is an object. Oh, because the keys are different. All right. So maybe let me just copy this part. Okay, so what I just need to do is actually just switch the values up. So I should still go through. Yep, so this will be name and remote, and this will be ID. I think that's right. Sorry, no, this should be spokes. So both looping through spokes, but they're reversed. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see here. So hub, this will be hub to spoke. And you can see that the virtual network name will be the platform. So that is the hub. And then the spoke will be app alpha. And then this should be in reverse. So you can see here, it's going to platform. Okay, let's apply this. Hopefully it works. So if we go back, so if you look here, obviously I've created my platform virtual network, and I've got subnets here. And this was a subnet that I created. And it should have the NSG, no. You can see here the NSG is associated to it. And it should be the same for the other one. So if we go to the application one, and if we look at subnet, you can see here that it's got the application subnet, and then it should have the application NSG associated. And then what we'll have now is we should have peering. Not a good sign. Not a good. Oh no, it's asking for. I told you, auto approval. Yep. So the peering should appear at some point. Let's go back to it. Okay, so if we go back to Azure. Okay, so you can see here there's peering, and I'm hoping it just works. Let's go back to the other one. So the platform. Peering. It says to be created, resource not found. Microsoft Network under resource group was not found. Oh. Okay. So this is complaining. So it's hub. So it's this one. So it's because this resource group, it's looking inside the wrong resource group. So let's do this. And let's do a Terraform apply, and let's do auto approve. Okay, that's why this peering doesn't exist. So I assume that's why this one is not showing as complete. So you can see here. So hopefully this one eventually appears. So it's now creating. Okay, so you can see there, it's created it and it's connected. So if we go back to the application VNet now, should be all hopefully pretty and not green yet. I don't know if I can sync. It says I don't have permissions, but anyways, I've just synced it. So that should have automatically happened, but that could have been because it errored when I was creating it, because this side was all clear. So that's done. So one thing I'm going to do is, because I'm building a lab, I want to set up some alerts. And you might want to say, what alerts? Because you have no infrastructure. We want to set up some cost alerts because we're building a lab. We don't want to basically have any unwanted spending. So let's go here. There's basically a resource, which is this Azure RM consumption budget subscription. So it looks like we need to create an action group and the alert. So let's copy this whole thing. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an action group. So we'll just call the action group cost alerts. And we're going to create this in the RGs, which will go inside the platform resource group. And we'll just call this cost alerts. let's see if I got that right. So let's comment that out for a sec, and we'll just do a validate. Okay, so that's okay. Hopefully it's okay. Now let's create this. Actually, let's go back to this action group, because when you create an action group, you should already have your email config. Okay, so you can see here, this is what we have, but what I want is the email receiver. So we're just going to set this up. That way I don't have to configure it in the alert. Yeah, we'll just call it send to admin. Actually, just to be consistent, we'll say send to Sunny. And if we just go Sunny at and we're just going to call this a budget alert. This is the amount, I believe, in dollar. Oh, it's got a subscription here. Okay, this has got subscription ID, but what we can do is I added it. I knew I needed to add it for something. You can see on the left, on the right, there's global dot subscription dot ID. So I don't have to do the data lookup. You'll just use that. Now the amount I'm going to say is $10. Let's be big spender. Let's go 15. So it's going to be monthly, but let's see what time grain means. Okay, so it looks like monthly is the shortest. So let's go monthly. So I think I don't need to add dimensions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't need to add this. Let's, because I'm targeting the subscription, hopefully. Notification true. Threshold is 90% equal to. I don't think I need contacts. Because what is the point of creating the action group then? Yeah, so I can just do this, contact groups. So if we get rid of this part, oh, that's a inbuilt notification. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Okay, so notification will be, what do I call it? Costs. Okay, so that should hopefully create an alert. And we just set this to, what's today's date? Today's the 10th of the 6th. Actually, let's do the 1st of the month. Don't really know what this end date is, but let's just do a whole year. So obviously with Terraform, it breaks down all these values, right? And it explains what they are. So you can see time period. Doesn't really tell you much though. Anyways, so that's done. There is another alert that I have here. I'll just copy this. You can actually create a cost anomaly alert as well, which I assume will just detect abnormal changes in your spend. You can't use, odd thing is you can't use action groups. Let's copy this whole thing and let's add it. Let's go costs. And we just go local.config.global.subscription.id. Yeah, it's odd I can't put an action group, but let's go. Let's do an FMT to lint it. Let's save it and let's just do another init and let's do a plan and let's see what it's going to do. Okay, doesn't like it. Passing ID. Okay. That's odd that it shows the ID. Oh, actually, which one's it complaining for? It doesn't. Oh, okay. So it's this one. So, okay. So it's this alert. Fantastic. So it looks like it needs the full reference, which will be format, and it'll be slash subscription. You know what? Let's just copy it. So it looks like it wants this whole value. So what I'm going to do is just formulate that string, and then we just go %s, close it out, comma, and it should pass through. So this will format and create this string, and then the %s is the string that you pass through. So it should pretty much create a string that will look like this. Now I don't know if I need it for the one above. It looks like I do. So that's a bit odd, because that data lookup I don't think would provide the same. But let's see. If that's the case, I don't need this either then. Let's just go plan. Nearly did the init again. Okay, didn't even like that. Oh, wait. Oh, I do need it, because I'm using it. Got a bit excited there. Okay, so probably should have just done the apply, jump the gun, because it does a plan anyway, and then you've got to confirm. Platform. See, that's the thing with Terraform. I did a validate. The syntaxing was correct, but obviously the attribute name was wrong. So let's do a tf apply. Okay, so hopefully that works now. So consumption alert, the anomaly, and the action group. So let's go yes, and it should create it. Okay, so let's go have a look at our subscriptions. So if you look here, we have budgets. So it should show something if it's created. No budgets yet. Let's go cost alerts. Why don't I have anything? Where did I create it? That's the question. Oh, there you go. Yep. So you can see here, scope, subscription. So the whole thing amounts $15, resets every month. And it's basically going to trigger at $14. And it should hopefully email me. So let's go back to here for a sec. We'll look at the action group after. Where's my cost alerts? I'm pretty sure it should appear here. That's a bit weird. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know why that's not appearing, but actually, because that's probably triggered alerts. It could be triggered alerts, because if we go to alert rules, you can see the alert rule exists. So that screen could be triggered alerts. So you can see here, this will basically detect any abnormal spend. And if we go back, let's go back to the subscription. If we go to resources, you'll see I should also have an action group. Action group should, does it not show you details? No. Oh no, there you go, send to, and the email address. And that's pretty much it. So that's a scaffolding for, a sort of hub spoke landing zone sort of design. So that allows me to pretty much build and deploy this at any point. And you can see here, I can pretty much just do this. And if I just go, so let's say third one would be gamma, and this would be 3, and that's gamma. So pretty much if I just add another landing zone, if I do a plan, it should basically add all the core components, which will be a resource group, and that's it, I think, actually, because there's actually it'll create a NSG as well, but no VNet, no subnet. So then you can obviously tack on extra things as well, but pretty much this single config file will allow me to deploy whatever I need. So you can see here, so it's going to create the NSG and it's going to create the RG. So there'll be a pattern where it'll just create those components by default. And as you can see, I've got the alerts. So that's pretty much it. So now what I can just do is I can just destroy it. And I'll just auto approve it. I can never spell destroy. I never really used Terraform destroy. But this is pretty much it. So this will now tear down my lab. Okay, so that's destroying. So that's going to clean up my lab. And as you can see, I can just add new keys and headers into that config file, and it'll just build multiple RGs. Obviously, I only have one platform because that's only going to be the single hub. But I could also put networking like firewalls and things in there as well. And if you're learning Terraform or you're trying to build a lab, feel free to watch the video, follow it through, and pause it. I'm not going to upload any of this code anywhere because it's pretty straightforward. I think you can probably just do it yourself. But yeah, just watch the video, follow along, and that's pretty much it. So we're going to let this destroy before I wind up the video. And hopefully this is not a super long video. I should be able to cut some parts out. So as you can see here, let's look at this. You can see here, most of it's destroyed. Okay, so that's everything destroyed. This is just the Azure feature here. Let's just refresh this. And everything's been destroyed. So it's as easy as that. If I did another apply, it'll deploy everything again. So let's quickly run through, I guess, the things that I didn't really cover. So obviously I created a service principal and I granted it the highest permission at the management group level. I could have done it at the subscription since I was operating at one subscription. I'll put those links below on how to run CLI to create a service principal and how to assign the RBAC. And then I authenticated locally via Azure CLI. So obviously I have Azure CLI installed and I already have Terraform installed. So I'll put those links below, but I didn't really want to cover that. I just wanted to walk through, build the lab, and just show you how I built it. Now, I don't think there was a need to create modules because I used the for each loops, so I wasn't duplicating code. They talk about dry, which is don't repeat yourself. So I didn't have to, it looks like, without the use of modules. I don't know, modules are good and bad because when you work at scale like I do at work, I feel like modules just create a layer of complication that sometimes you don't need because people try to make the modules too smart. And then when you have to modify things, there's a lot of state manipulation and you have to rewrite stuff. But luckily with Terraform now, there's import blocks, there's move blocks, and there's remove blocks. And I haven't used remove yet, but I've used move and import, which is super handy when you're making modifications to modules and you have to manipulate state without actually running any commands. You can basically just put blocks in and then just do an apply and it automatically moves it. It's fantastic. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So hopefully you've learned something. Feel free to, like I said, follow the video, pause it as you go along, start doing things yourself so you can take it in. But this will probably be my little setup that will be every sort of foundation to any other videos that I make. Or anything that I need to learn or do. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video and I'm signing out. See ya!